Welcome to the Along Podcast. I'm Sierra, a millennial.
And I'm Tracy, a baby boomer.
And on this show, we're not afraid to talk about age and how it changes things. Wellness, lifestyle, relationships, honestly, just everything in life. So come along today because we are talking about optimization and how it seems like every wellness influencer out there has a tip or a product to optimize your life. Tracy, I feel like my feeds, especially this time of year, are filled with 5 a.m. morning routines, habit stacking, how to get the best workout, and how to be that girl. Do you feel this pressure as well?
Okay, I'm thinking about that girl. That's a whole new term for me.
Yeah.
I think it's different for our generation, but I think we all do it. I think everybody's into a certain health routine. And yeah, I have to say I'm on YouTube all the time. That's my main source of information. And there is so much stuff out there. I don't even know where to begin.
And I honestly don't know how many wellness influencers you follow, but it kind of just feels like there's this pressure to optimize every moment in your life, like to really get every single thing that you do down to the point where you're getting the most output in your morning, you're getting the most output out of your sleep, you're getting the most output out of your work day. It kind of feels exhausting. And I wonder where that stems from, because I remember when I was in my 20s, the girl boss movement. Do you remember this? It was around the 2010s.
I kind of do. I've heard of it.
Yeah. Okay. There was actually a TV show on Netflix about Sophia Amoruso, who created Nasty Gal, and it was called Girl Boss. And I think it was because she also wrote a book called Girl Boss at the time. And it was the rise of the female CEO, hardworking, working just as many hours as the men in the startups were, and just doing anything and everything to get it done. And it was I would call it now, looking back at it, like a toxic culture. And then now you fast forward, 20 years, and not even 20 years, 15 years, but Gen Z has kind of their own version of this, but it's softer. It's got a prettier package. It's called That Girl, right? Which I made you look at.
Which, by the way, I have to say this. I just have to.
Yeah.
That was a series back in the 60s that I kind of grew up on. So, but she was kind of that way. So I don't know. It just brings it back.
I think the idea of That Girl, for those of you who are not familiar with this term and maybe don't spend a lot of time looking up morning routines on YouTube like I do, the idea of That Girl is, it's very like Pilates princess, if you're familiar with that. She's motivated. She's got her life together. She wakes up at 5 a.m. She drinks her electrolytes before her morning coffee. She works out. She works a full-time job on top of that. But she also has time for all of this, and her house is spectacular, right? That's That Girl. She's just got it all together. She's got it all. And I think that's the idea of the girl boss too. And it somehow tied into this. It's interesting because the idea is the same. It's just in a different package. Now it's a little bit more lower cortisol, I guess you could say. Stress isn't cute, but you're still doing 10 million things throughout the day to have this perfect life. And if that isn't stressful, and if that doesn't lead to burnout, I don't know what else does. Because I definitely got burnout from the girl boss phase. I was trying to girl boss my way through New York City, and I think I did pretty successfully, but it certainly led to burnout. And I feel like it's the same thing now with That Girl. It's just a different style of it. Do you feel like that was the thing when you were in your 20s?
So I have to say, say two things. I don't want to forget to say this, what you just were talking about and the wellness thing. It's kind of ironic.
Yeah, it is
So
ironic.
you go through all of that to stress yourself out when you're trying to be, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
But I will say in a generational way, for we baby boomers, when we were like your age or younger, we actually were, it was a thing about having it all. There was a trend
Yeah.
that, was post the 50s with our parents and the whole post-war World War II.
The keeping up with the Joneses.
But it was having it all. The women. It was about the women. You can be a mom now. You can go to work now. You can do, and it was this notion of having it all. So I think that was a precursor.
Isn't that kind of what like when we were talking about optimizing your life, it's like having it all. It's having time to fit every single little thing in and getting the most out of it. And it's the idea that you're super, super efficient at your workday, so that way you can set aside time to meditate and
that is hilarious.
Calm down, which is just funny.
And then you can't calm down because if you try to meditate, this happens to me, and then you get the monkey brain, and so you go through all of that. I think that's hilarious. Actually,
it really is. Okay, so at this stage in your life, because a lot of this is also wrapped in self-improvement, and who doesn't want to like improve their life all the time, but at this stage in your life, where would you say you are when it comes to like self-improvement and then like optimizing your life?
I'm so glad.
What's your relationship with that?
Well,
what's your relationship with yourself? No, I'm kidding.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm happy to talk about that. The thing is, I think the aging thing, which is still freaks me out, to be honest. I mean, I struggle with, like, I can't even believe it. I feel like I'm, your age or even younger. It's like, what the hell happened? But as we get older, what I think happens is it's almost like you're motivated even more to be your best self, because as the years go on and time starts to run out, there's kind of this weird thing where you get extra motivated.
Yeah.
And it's also a health thing. It's like, you better work out, at my age. You better be working out. You better be doing stuff that's going to help your mind, body, spirit, or you're going to end up, you're going to end up really old in every way.
And regretting something, right?
And regretting,
it's almost like this fear of missing out in your life sort of thing. Like it's kind of similar when people, I guess this is kind of what a midlife crisis is, or like, I feel like millennials are going through their own little like weird midlife crisis right now because we can't buy homes. We can't, we can't, retirement is looking really, really far away. There's this other sort of, what is everybody else doing and how am I comparing myself to everything? And then like, have I accomplished that yet? And I feel like so much of this is driven by like the comparison of what have I done? Have I done anything? Am I on track to do all the things before I die? Am I keeping up with the Joneses in that way in terms of I'm hit a certain age and am I at the same level as all these other people? And social media is so good at letting us know where other people are, right? And it makes sense that as you get older, you're, looking at all the years behind you and you're like, have I done everything that I thought I was going to do? Have I accomplished all the accomplishments that I wanted to in life, right?
Is that what you guys are going through now? Would you say the millennials are going through that?
I would say I feel like the millennials are hitting a midlife crisis before midlife crisis. And I think it's because buying a house is a lot harder. We're waiting longer to have kids. So this timeline has just really gotten extended in a weird way that we didn't see other generations sort of hit before. So I do think we're going through a little bit of a midlife crisis because all of these accomplishments that we would like to do seem unaffordable. And they kind of are, to be honest. Have you looked at the housing market in LA? It's crazy. Absolutely wackadoodle out there. But like, I think about it and I think like that mindset of comparing yourself and looking at aspirationally someone who seems to have it all, because that's what we're looking at when we're looking at like optimizing our life and self-improvement, is like this idea of a better version of ourselves. It really, to me, when I feel like when I was in the thick of that in my 20s, of this aspirational of like where I want to be by a certain age, it immediately led to burnout. And like, it was the whole process of going through that, if you're not really self-aware of how you're taking on these self-improvement measures, it can be overwhelming and also like very degrading when you don't do it right, or you don't follow through with something, or you fail at something, and it can almost make you feel worse,
Wow. It's so interesting because that is the struggle, feeling like you got to do a lot. And yet the older, well, at least from my experience in my generation that I can I think I can speak for, is you know what it becomes? All about living in the moment. Not so easy to do. We all know about that, but there's something about that, the age, because you run around and compare. And of course, I have major issues around comparison.
Oh, well, I think we all do with social media.
Really?
Now.
Okay, I don't feel so
Yeah,
bad.
I think it's like an ongoing problem for all of society with social media now.
Yeah.
I would say most people have, unless you live under a rock and don't have social media, it's you basically open your phone and immediately you're bombarded with other people doing things that you're not.
I mean, how do we balance that?
It's crazy. And okay, so I feel like my 20s were a big lesson to me because by the time I was 29, I was burnt out. I lived in New York. I was living that life I was in journalism, and then I was in digital media, and I was, jumping from job to job, and I was climbing the corporate ladder and, dating and doing all these things. Like my life was on like amplification of 20-fold, right? Just like, it just felt like constantly I was busy, constantly I had something to go on. And that's really easy to do in a big city like New York, right? But by the time I left New York, I was exhausted. I think it took me like a couple of years to kind of like get back to normal. When I moved here, I really wanted a change of pace, and LA was a great experience for me because I was in some way, I didn't have to go to like that level of volume of doing everything in my life. I could sort of like scale back a little bit, but without stopping. Like my life was still on a up and up trajectory when I first moved to LA, but just not as many busy things going on as New York City. And like, it took me a while to kind of come back to normal, to come off of the high of being at a 10 all the time in my life. And I recently read this book called Toxic Productivity. It's by, I'm going to royally screw up the pronunciation of this name, but it's called Toxic Productivity by Isra Nasser. And I highly recommend it for any other perfectionists out there because it was incredibly validating. It's funny because I was reading it and I realized that's no longer where I am in my life, but it was where I was in my life. And it kind of gave me a term to what happened in those years. Like what happened when I hit burnout and then kind of recovered for the next few years after that. And also just some good, like, just furthering lessons of how I can kind of keep the progress of like trying to quote unquote find the balance, or as I like to call it, finding the self-love. Because I don't think it's balance we're all looking for. I think we're like looking for self-acceptance and self-love, right. And that equals balance at some point. The balance naturally happens when you find that. But do you have an idea of what the term toxic productivity might mean? Like, what would that mean to you if I just...
Well, it means being basically a workaholic and it's not just work, right? It's also again, we're with the irony of that whole mind, body, spirit. Okay. I've got to have my mind, body, spirit in full force.
Yeah.
And then it becomes toxic because it becomes like a vicious cycle is what I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so I think it's
and you get stressed out about it.
Totally. Because like, even if you look in the idea of wellness right now, I have to meditate, but I have to meditate for 20 minutes perfectly. I can't meditate and like have all these thoughts in my head because otherwise I wasn't good at it. Like it's that type of, so let me read to you some examples that she gives in the book. So toxic productivity, she describes it as taking productivity to an extreme point in which it becomes unhealthy for you mentally and or physically. And some common thoughts and statements, these might be some signs that you are someone who is toxically productive. You consistently overload your plate. So you say things like, I'll take on this project as well. It's no problem, even though your plate is overloaded. An inability to turn off. So for example, if you work a corporate job and you say, I'm leaving for vacation, but I'll still have access to my work email, so don't hesitate to reach out if anything comes up. Or if you're the type of person, maybe you're a freelancer that's out there and says, well, I'll sleep better after I've finished this project or after I've finished this. And then the other thing that she sort of talks about in the book is this constant feeling of perfectionism, or feeling like things have to be perfect, or that you can only be the one that makes things perfect. So she gives the example of saying, I can't delegate this because no one will do it as well as I can. And it's funny because, look, I am certainly not perfect. I'm not healed. I am not. Let me be very clear. I'm still working on myself. I still got things that I need to like fix about myself. I feel like I have come a long way in terms of being a little bit more graceful with myself, and realizing that it's sometimes impossible to accomplish everything in a day. But I still sometimes have these feelings. I like, it still pops up sometimes. And I think that it's something, this idea of toxic productivity is something that I truly feel like, especially if you're in the wellness community, especially if you're into self-help at all, or self-improvement books or podcasts or any of that, you can't help but feel those things sometimes, you know? And I think so much of it just comes from comparison. And also just us being uncomfortable with the idea of just being, right? Like, something in it has to do with your relationship to yourself, don't you think?
You know that, yes, I do. I think you're absolutely right. Somebody told me recently there's this room somewhere, I forget, she didn't know where it was in the country. There's a room that is completely quiet. It's like,
that'd be terrifying to me.
And in the world of audio and podcasts that I've been in for a long time, it's that and Greg knows this, it's dead. They call it dead sound.
Yeah.
So it's like a soundproof room, but it's like the deadest sound in existence.
Is it like when you have your headphones on and it's like noise canceling? Is that dead sound?
Well, I think it's even more so. But what she said is people go into this room and they freak out.
I would too.
So I got to research it because because I think about that. Just think that, like you're saying, that we don't spend time just being. It's like hard to just be.
It hurts my brain to be quiet. Like, it really does.
Are we like addicted to distractions?
Oh, I think
I'm
so.
getting off of it's still part of optimization. It's like, there's so much coming at us that this is what happens, that we don't know how to be.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say this, because I recently, my Spotify Wrapped came up. I listened to this year 34,000 hours of podcasts only on Spotify.
Wow.
Now, to give you Spotify is where I listen to like wellness content. That doesn't include my true crime podcast listening time, which I don't have a measure of that. But that's only on Wondery Plus, okay?
Okay, good. I'm glad
Plug
you're listening
for Wondery
to my true crime show.
And like, that's probably, I usually, my habit is Monday through Thursday, I'm listening to like educational stuff while I'm doing other things. And then Friday is like my brain turns off on that day. Like, I can't think of anything productive. So I got to listen to like all of my like true crime stuff on that day. So if out of 4 days is like 34,000 hours for the year, that's sad. I don't know what the math is there. Maybe Greg can be doing the math on this. But you like how many hours?
Sierra, you must know a lot.
I don't.
Right? Well, I mean, you're educating yourself.
So then I was thinking, as I was reading this book, I was like, when do I listen to these podcasts? I tried to stop, because this is another thing that somebody, probably Huberman, told me is bad for me. And I'm sure a bunch of you who listen to wellness podcasts know about our daddy Huberman. He's Andrew Huberman is a podcaster. He's very science heavy. He has a lot of protocols that you can follow, and he's great. Honestly, I can't listen to him every week because it feels like I'm in a college lecture, but every once in a while I'll chime in. And so I got in the habit of trying to not just like immediately look at my phone and toxic scroll. But what did I replace it with? I replaced it with educational podcasts. And I think I did that to feel motivated in the morning. I was like, oh, if I listen to something like this motivational, then it'll set me up the right mentality in the day, right? But then I also thought about it, and I thought, like, I feel like I have to like fill my time with something that isn't just junk. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like I have to fill it with something that's like productive. And that really got me thinking. Like I did one morning where I tried to just like not listen to podcasts like on my, because I tend to like put them in while I'm like making my coffee and then walking my dog and all that sort of stuff. And so that there is like a solid like 45 minutes of listening at least. And do you know how hard it was for me to just listen to music even, or just listen to nothing? I felt fidgety. I felt like I wanted to turn it back.
I mean, you know what? This is a big change I think, for humanity, that we're being bombarded and we're so addicted to having the information coming at us all the time, even though we know it's not so great. That, I don't know, what do we do about it though?
Great question.
I'm thinking, like,
actually, what? I do think if you do find yourself like as somebody that struggles with this, I would say I would recommend picking up this book, because there are a lot of things of just helping you be more aware of it. And I think that's half of it. I'm not, by any means, I'm not saying like stop reading self-improvement books, stop doing that, because I do think it's important to be working on yourself. But like, understand when you take it to an extreme. Like, understand your relationship with self-improvement. Are you doing it because it's actually benefiting your life, or are you doing it as a coping mechanism because you feel like crap? There's a difference, you know, and like being aware of that, I think, is really important, and like not being obsessive over it.
It's the obsessive thing, right?
It's the obsessive. It's just very, and I think people are getting really obsessive. I always look at like some of these morning routines that I see on YouTube of like these 20-year-olds with 12-step morning routines that take from like 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And I'm like, you know what's going to happen when you get into your 30s? This person that's on YouTube that talks about one day when I have kids, like, you're not going to be able to have that 3 hours in the morning to do all of this. So like figuring out like what is actually realistic and reasonable, I think is key to this. Okay. I want to turn to Greg though, because Greg, you listen to a lot of self-improvement stuff, and what do you think? Where are you in that world right now? Do you feel like you have a healthy relationship with it? And like, what do you think about this toxic productivity thing?
Well, yeah, I've listened to a lot of self-improvement stuff over the years, really went down that rabbit hole.
And are you improved?
I think, yeah.
And he's 10 times better. Can attest.
Absolutely am improved. But at a certain point, you realize that you have become addicted to the like, you know, the pump up of like, oh, this is going to be better, da, da, da. And you're really just getting like a dopamine hit of like, and so you're like, okay, at a certain point, I actually have to go start implementing some of this stuff. I can't just sit around and read these books all day.
It becomes almost avoidant. It's like you're avoiding the actual getting better, because the idea of reading this feels like progress towards doing that, but you're not actually doing the thing.
It feels good. It feels good. But I think that's even the thing of like, so you said listening to podcasts and doing all that, and I'm guilty of this too. And I did do the math, and you said if it was 4 days a week over the year, that's 2.7 hours per day
that I'm listening to.
An average of 90 minutes over 365 days of every day that you're listening to something.
Well, that's why you're great to talk to, Sierra.
That's why
we're doing this show.
But then the question is, when does my brain turn off? Like, when am I not productive?
And this is something like if you read Dopamine Nation or listen to Huberman's episode on that.
I tried to read that, but it was real science.
The thing with like constantly feeling like, oh, I can't wash the dishes without having your AirPods in, you know, is that like you basically are frying your dopamine system, and you're like essentially like, you know, there's a whole dopamine detox thing now where it's like
I've been
giving up YouTube, giving up whatever,
thinking about this,
because you do start to feel like you said, it gets quiet and you're like uncomfortable and fidgety because your brain is so used to stimulation, and this like you've kind of like fried your reward system in your brain by having like just constantly bombarding it. And so by doing things like meditating, which I do, which actually there's not, you don't have to do it perfectly. That's kind of the whole, that's kind of the whole thing.
Exactly.
No, but I do.
Shout out TM. Yeah. Anyone who does TM, you know, that's their whole thing. So, you know, but doing things like that and just taking intentional silence, you get more comfortable.
Yeah.
Boy, it's tough being human right now.
It really is.
We were not built for this.
I mean, it's like, okay, it's bad enough with, you know, work and stress and all that, but now we're stressing about our mind, body, spirit, development and the good stuff, then we have to obsess about it. That's and you know what, Greg? I'm so glad you said that about meditation. I think that makes a really good point, is that people think, and I remember I was in a class a long time ago, a meditation class, and it was, 30 minutes and you don't think about anything, that whole thing. And, I thought, oh, well, then I'm not going to be able to just do this every day. And then all of a sudden I realized, you know what? No. I'm going to do my version of meditation. I'll do guided meditation. Oh, no, you're not supposed to do guide. Yeah, you can. Guess what? You can.
Yeah,
as long as you do
can.
something. And now I listen to the megahertz thing, the binaural beats.
Yeah.
Noises.
And I've just kind of given and so I think there's a point to that. This is perfect about optimization, is even in that situation, like you said, Greg, you can just say, I'll do it my way, and you're showing up and you're doing it, and that's what counts.
So I have in the past done walking meditations, and I do find that that's a lot easier. There's this podcast called Meditative Story. I'm obsessed with it. It's like, there's this guy, the host, his name is Rohan, and his voice is just like very calm, and he opens it up with like telling you like what the story is going to be about today. And every story is like a lesson. Like some of them are funny, and some of them are like more like, just like life lessons or things that people learn or something like that. And they walk you through, the person reads their story and they walk through the lesson that they learned. And there's this really like nice music behind it and these like nature sounds. And it's actually really nice to walk to. And it gives me something to, it's probably not completely meditative because I am thinking about this story. And then I'm like, they're in China. Maybe I should book a trip to China. Like, you know what I mean?
We just have to like cut ourselves a break.
Yeah, we do.
And just say, do what you can, right? You just do what you can. And if that works for you, then that's great. You don't have to do, I don't believe you can clear your mind. I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments, but I know the importance. I get it. I do understand that. But I think that's what I've learned as I've done this kind of stuff. And because I'm older,
well, if I can just say, because I do specifically transcendental meditation, which the thoughts are part of it. There's no you're not trying to clear your mind because it obviously I'm not a teacher, so I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but basically having the thoughts, it's perfectly normal. It's part of it. It's actually a good sign. It's a sign that stress is being released. And so it's not like, don't think of anything, because that's impossible, but the irony is the more you do it, like, the kind of less you have intrusive thoughts, even though, but it's because you've cleared out things from your nervous system. That
Greg, you're
stored.
a renaissance man. I have to say that. We have an awesome director, producer.
But you know what's funny is that I find that a lot of these people that have like these cult-like followings, Huberman and Brian Johnson and David Goggins and all these people, it's like their lives are so protocol driven, rigid, and regimented. Yes. Right. Of like all of these things that they do that but then they also are like very much then trying to focus on like the rest time too and doing that really well. So like Brian Johnson, I just watched one of his videos about like his sleep routine, and he has a room that has nothing in it. It's really depressing. It looks like a gutted out hotel room. Like it's like really crappy blinds. There's like nothing in it. It's a constant like 60 something degrees. He doesn't have an like alarm clock in there. He has like someone wake him up like in the morning. It's really crazy. And like he has like all of these measurement things. He has this breath thing that looks like a vibrator. I'm not kidding. I have a vibrator that looks exactly like it. And he holds it while he falls asleep, and he like breathes in and out. And I'm like, you need a device for that? You need a vibrator that for that? I mean, it really is like the product pipeline that comes with resting after you've exhausted yourself with all of the protocols. It is insane. Have you heard of an 8 Sleep mattress?
No, I haven't.
By the way, 8 Sleep, I'm not shitting on you. If you want to sponsor us, I'm here for it. I would love an 8 Sleep mattress, but
I'll take one too.
So there's like a lot of studies that show that like the proper, quote unquote proper, or the best way to get a good night's sleep and a most restful sleep is to lower your core body temperature. And so you can do that by just like making the whole room colder, or you can get a $5,000 mattress that has like this water tank that just cools it down for you to a very specific temperature and then warms it back up to wake you up in the morning.
Well, it does sound pretty great.
It sounds like my heated toilet.
I'm okay. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Sierra, I have to tell you guys, Sierra has a warm toilet seat that is
It's a bidet.
It's
life-changing.
It's, you know what? It's just delicious.
It's
not delicious. Okay, I
one
didn't
way to
mean
describe
that. I didn't mean that description, but you know what I mean. It just feels magnificent. Now,
It makes my tush feel delicious in the morning.
I have a question, Sierra, about Brian Johnson.
Yep.
I just want to know, and the others that are in the healthy longevity world to that extent. What do you think? Is he happy? I want to know if is he really happy?
When he talks in interviews, he says like this is where he gets his jollies, you know, like this makes him happy, and you know, I get it. It's sometimes if you're like super passionate about things, and this is what I think about workaholics too. But then I think you have to ask yourself if it's really true. I really do enjoy my job, right? But when it becomes overtaking of your life, there's like some beautiful benefit of like doing what you love for work. But at some point it is work. And then at some point there's no line between your personal life and what you used to love and then work. And that is really scary. That's honestly what 2010 startup culture was. Like this era of the girl bosses where all of the startups had like, you know, pool tables and like, you know, free drinks and free food and all of these perks to try and keep you at the office because it was cool to like culturally love your job and be obsessed with your job. And I think we're kind of still doing the same thing. It's just, again, wrapped in a wellness package that looks like your cortisol is lower, but I don't think it is.
Well, we're kind of screwed.
I know.
I mean, I was thinking about the distraction thing and the addiction to distractions. And I went to Seattle before I went to New York, and I'm flying home, and Mount Rainier. And I knew because my friend was pointing it out, and so I was sort of hyper aware of it. But we did the U-turn when we took off, and so I was on the left side, so we're going south. And I realized we're going to see Mount Rainier. Oh my God. It was like I could touch it with the snow and everything. And I looked around the plane. No one was looking.
They were all on their
phones. All their
phones,
shades were
screens.
down. And I've seen that before. It's nothing new, but it just hit me because the juxtaposition of this beautiful mountain that's all I was doing was looking at I didn't have any music on or anything. I was just looking at the mountain. And you know what? It was super satisfying. But then when I looked around, I was like, are you guys kidding me? I wanted to get up and just tap people and go, you guys, look.
Wait, were you raw dogging this flight?
Raw dogging?
Have you not heard this term?
No.
I was just going to ask her if she was raw dogging.
I have never, you guys, this is why we have this show, because I'm learning so much from the millennials.
So
what is raw
a trend
dogging?
A few months ago on like TikTok and Instagram, and Greg, feel free to chime in, but it's like of people just, because you know how when you get on a plane, you have the screen in front of you most of the time, but also people load up their iPad or they're playing games or they're doing whatever. So there was a trend, and I think it was part of this dopamine detox sort of trend as well, where people were like just quote unquote raw dogging a 9-hour flight, which is doing nothing.
Yes. I have heard of
sitting there and not doing anything. No book, no phone, no music, no nothing. Just sitting there.
It's there's that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine and like she's dating Putty, and she gets on the plane. She's like, "You didn't bring anything to read?" He's like, "No." Like, so what are you gonna? You just gonna sit there? Yeah. And then she's like, decides she has to break up with him after because she's like, I can't be with someone who is this insane.
That is hilarious. But you know what? I do remember seeing that on social media, that concept. I mean, I don't know if I could do that. That's kind of That would be hard to do, but it would be good if you could.
I can't have headphones on that are noise canceling with nothing in them. Like, it hurts my brain. So I don't think I could raw dog a flay.
Well, okay, so I raw dogged for, let's see, I don't know, 90 seconds? No, maybe a little longer.
Okay.
I did, but yes. So, okay.
I also don't think it's supposed, like, I saw some article talking about it's not actually good for you to do it for that long. But also, I think it's because they're also like not moving.
They're also not moving. Yeah.
Well, and nothing is good for you anyway. We know that.
I know.
Yeah, it's all about a balance.
Like, it is about a balance.
Your mind does need stimulation. You can't just be nothing for 9 hours. Like,
I think that would be, and they're doing it for clicks, probably.
Exactly.
Sorry, you guys, but that's probably part of some of you who do it.
Yeah. Okay. So back to like people who are obsessed with this, the Brian Johnsons of the world and all of that. I mean, at some point it sort of becomes your identity to be this type of person, right? And like for the rest of us that are looking at these people as aspirational, I think it's really common for people to like try and make that their identity. Like when they're on a self-improvement journey, it's like, I'm going to be the person that goes to the gym 4 times a week. And I'm also going to cold plunge. And I'm also going to do the sauna. And I'm also going to do this. And I'm that girl. I'm that person.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it just makes me wonder, like, what happens when you fail? Like, how do you cope with that? If you wrap it so much in your identity of that's who you are, which it kind of seems like all of these people that are out there promoting it are encouraging you to do that because that's the surefire way you'll do it. But it also just seems like if you inevitably fail or have an off season, like holiday season, where maybe you get off your gym routine and you don't get back on it until come January when we're all make our resolutions and stuff, like that really has got to be a hit to the ego. And I think it really can start kind of messing with your idea of your self-worth, you know? It doesn't seem healthy to make it your identity in the way that it's kind of being portrayed by a lot of these people that are out there touting this lifestyle, right?
Hence the book
Toxic Productivity. I know, right?
But it is true. I mean, it's going to the extreme. It's when we go to the extreme, and for some reason, some of us need to do that, or at least try it for a while and get on this treadmill of whatever it is, and then you can crash.
Right, because that inner critic is so loud for all of us, right? When we try and do something new or we try and do something that improves ourselves and then we fail at it. And like, it can be really detrimental if your entire identity is wrapped up in this idea of improving yourself and being better. It actually, that in and of itself kind of implies that I'm not good enough now. Right? Exactly. The idea of self-improvement, if you're not careful, can so easily, it looks nice. It looks like it's a good thing to do. I equate it like, I've said this before on the podcast and I'm very open about it. I had an eating disorder when I was in high school. And one of the things that was so hard about an eating disorder is that it looks like you're just eating healthy to everybody outside until it goes down a path where you've lost too much weight. So at first you're getting all of this, all of this praise for like, wow, you're really eating healthy. How good for you. How good. And it's like, it's a little bit of like an adrenaline rush. Like, oh, the praise that I'm doing something right. And I would say self-improvement is kind of similar. Wow, how good of you for being someone that wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes to the gym every single day and also does cold plunging and wow. But when it becomes obsessive and there's a negative part and there's a cost to it, and sometimes the cost is just your own relationship with yourself, and sometimes it's something physical, it can get really, really dangerous. And then what happens is like that inner critic becomes so loud that there's a fear of, if I don't do this, I'm a failure. I'm a bad person. And it's such a dangerous game to play. Not saying that some people can probably manage it than others, but if you are somebody who, struggles with perfectionism or has ever, struggled with certain aspects of your life that are along the lines of OCD, perfectionism, anything along like that, it is something to just be aware of as you're going down this path of optimizing your life. I always say like, it's really important to be aware of that inner critic. Like say it out loud. Say it out loud, because sometimes when you hear those things in your head, they can be really mean. And if you say it out loud, you become aware of how mean they are.
And that thing about thoughts are things. We know it. We've heard it a million times, but we just always need to work on it. I don't think will ever go away with any of us.
Monsters grow in the dark, though.
I like that monster. I mean, I don't like monsters growing in the dark, but I think it's a good.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, it's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, and it is, because it's just, if you don't talk about it and talk about the struggle, and if you aren't aware of it, then it can really like run your life. And I think there's so much positive that can happen from going on a self-improvement journey. And like, for somebody, I mean, I'm not talking about the person that like struggles to like even go on a walk during the day. I'm talking about the person that is already working out a couple times a week and then suddenly has decided that it has to be every day, and I also have to get 10,000 steps in, and I also have to wake up at 5 a.m. to accomplish all of that. And then, but I still need to get 8 hours of sleep, and I still need to work my 9-to-5 job. So that means then I'm cutting back on how much I'm hanging out with my friends or how much time I'm spending with my significant other. In order to do that, I'm cutting away. There's a cost.
There is
to doing that. You know,
I'm exhausted just listening to all of this.
I know that sounds like a perfect, exhausting day.
Well, it's like we need to optimize not being toxically, if that's a word, productive. So in other words, we need to resist that if we can, resist the temptation to let it take over our lives.
Right.
And kind of just dial it back to zero, and even give ourselves time to just not do anything that's completely productive, and just sort of wean yourself off for a day or two. I know you have to do what you have to do, but it's almost like we need that too.
Yeah, 100%. A while ago, I made this rule. I guess you call it a rule, but it was more like an allowance for myself, because I think about my life in buckets of the day, right? Was I good at being a dog mom today? And like, to me, that means, okay, she didn't just like go on her regular walk for going potty morning and evening. I also managed to get like a solid 45 minutes of exercise in with her, and then, you know, also play with her during the day. And then, okay, so I want to be a good dog mom, and I also want to be healthy. So did I get a chance to work out like 4 times this week? Or, you know, did I at least like go and move my body and like whatever? And then also like, okay, I want to be a good girlfriend. Did I spend time with my boyfriend at the end of the day? Was it quality time, or were we just sitting and watching a show and both on our phones at the same time? Like, did I eat healthy? Did I, you know, was I a good, you know, daughter or granddaughter and call one of my family members today? And it's really hard to accomplish all of those perfectly in every single day. And so a while ago, I did this a couple years ago, where I just decided that I was going to let myself fail at one thing every day. Like, I get to fail in a bucket. I get to fail somewhere along the lines in there, and I don't have to feel bad about it. I can just let it happen, and the world will not end if I failed to, you know, sit down with my boyfriend and have a conversation, and instead we were both so tired that we just scrolled on our phones the entire time. As long as I don't keep that up as a habit, and I make a point then maybe the next time we're hanging out to not have that be the case, or if I skipped a 45-minute walk with my dog today, but tomorrow I'm going to make a point for that's the first thing I'm doing in the day, it's fine. It's about balance. That's about self-love, of allowing myself to just like be okay with failing. Be okay with not getting everything done. And like, it's so hard. It's so much easier said than done, though.
Yeah.
I feel like it's taken years for me to get to that point.
I have, as somebody who's worked out my whole life, and I'm sort of an anomaly as a baby boomer, because I don't go work out with people, and I've always kind of done my own thing. But what I have learned is, yes, I work out 7 days a week. I mean, not full bore every day, but it's a habit. It's a good habit that I've had for a long time, and it's paying off. But what is important is I give myself, let's say, a day where I don't do anything, and I do it on purpose, because the whole point is getting back to it. And when you get back to it, then you know, if you know you're going to get back to it, you're not going to go, oh, well, I haven't worked out in 2 days, I'm not going to work out anymore.
Yeah.
And it really is an important part of this whole optimization thing. You have to cut it off, give yourself a break, and then go back. I think that's an important part of the balance.
Well, I think it's about having self-love and being in control of your mind, where you know that you may have had a bad day, but tomorrow's a new day and you can get right back to it. Don't let yourself get bogged down too much in the feeling of disappointment in yourself. It's really hard to completely avoid disappointment in yourself, but again, say it out loud. Like when you're sitting in your bed or laying in your bed at the end of the day and you're going through and you're like, oh, I didn't do this today. Oh God, Sierra, why? Ugh. Say it out loud. Do you know how many times during the day I'm walking around and I'm like, oh, Sierra. But I say it and then I kind of laugh a little bit after because the truth is like, it sounds way less severe when I say it out loud. I can laugh at it when I say it out loud.
I think that's great. I've been doing that too. I've been working on that. Thank you for that.
You're also talking to yourself?
Yes, I am. And I do my mantras, as I've told you before. It
runs in my family, but and we all talk to ourselves.
But now I'm like paying more attention to that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And like, it's just, it's so easy to get wrapped in your head and to really feel down on yourself when you're not a perfect person, but none of us are perfect. And like finding ways that you can be more realistic with yourself, I think that's so important.
Great advice.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Any final thoughts, Gregory? What do you think about perfectionism?
I'm in endless pursuit of it. And I, despite what you guys have all just said, made some very good points. I will not stop striving. No, I've really tried to dial it back myself. Personally.
Yeah.
And I mean, not like, striving for things, but like, yeah, that whole, I was the person who would wake up at 5 and I had like 8 things that I had literally were like in my calendar, like scheduled down to like 15-minute intervals of like, this is what you're going to read for half an hour. And then you're going to do this. And then you're going to like, and yeah, I don't think it's the best way to live. I mean, it's better than having absolutely no structure, but I think you're better off, honestly, like, I've seen some things recently where people are talking about they try to just get up and immediately start working and then do their morning routine because they're like, you could spend 4 hours doing this morning routine and meditating and working out and doing whatever, and then you're exhausted and then you're unproductive the rest of the day.
Yeah.
It's like, so get the most important things you need done early when you have all that energy and whatever, and then if you still want to do
and
all
maybe
these
rethink
other things,
the morning routine to be less productive. Maybe it's more about, just like being one with nature or something like that.
I think we overcomplicate it. I think it's
true.
Just eat.
I think you're right.
Eat as close to a whole food diet as you can, exercise, meditate, or do something for your mental health.
Yeah.
And that's about it. It doesn't have to be
And then understand that there's going to
complicated.
be seasons that it's just, sometimes you do have to grind, Like I'm really glad I went through the season of my 20s where I worked really, really hard and exhausted myself. I wish I was a little kinder to myself, but I'm glad that I did it because then when I got to my 30s, I'm really thankful that I have a career that it's not that I don't work hard, but I don't have to push myself to a 10 all the time. I can take a little bit of a step back, and I have the benefit of that because I worked really hard in my 20s. And so understand that there are seasons, and sometimes those seasons are months like the holidays, and other times it's like a couple years of your life, and that's fine. But you gotta at some point it's got to become fall and winter, and you got to eat cookies and sit back and relax.
Yeah, one of my favorite personal development gurus, Bob Proctor, used to say, "There's a season for sowing and a season for reaping, but you don't do both in the same season."
Okay.
See? And with that, I think that's a great way to end.
That's a great way to end.
That's
yes,
a great
indeed.
way to end. Thanks for coming along with us today. If you want more, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube @AlongPodcast. Bye.
Bye.